You're not crazy, and neither is the other person. But one of you might be gaslighting, and the other might just have a genuinely different memory. The difference matters because it changes everything about how you handle what comes next. Memory is not a video recording. It's a story your brain tells itself, and every single time you remember something, you're actually reconstructing it from fragments. Those fragments get colored by your emotions, your beliefs, what you've learned since, and what you needed to believe at the time. So two people can experience the exact same conversation and walk away with completely different versions of what happened. That's not dishonesty. That's just how human brains work. Gaslighting is different. Gaslighting is when someone deliberately manipulates you into doubting your own perception of reality. It's intentional, it's strategic, and it's designed to make you dependent on their version of events so they can control the narrative, avoid accountability, or maintain power in the relationship. Here's where it gets tricky. From the outside, gaslighting and genuine memory disagreement can look identical. Both involve two people with conflicting accounts. Both involve one person saying the other is wrong. Both can make you feel confused and doubted. But the intent and the pattern are what separate them. When two people genuinely remember something differently, they're usually open to exploring it. They might say, "I remember it this way, but I could be wrong." Or they might ask questions. They might look for evidence together. They might acknowledge that their perspective is limited. They're not trying to convince you that your brain is broken. They're trying to figure out what actually happened. Gaslighting follows a different playbook. The person doesn't just disagree with you. They deny your memory happened at all. They tell you you're too sensitive, too emotional, too crazy to trust your own mind. They might bring in other people to back them up, even if those people weren't there. They rewrite history in real time and act like you're the unreasonable one for noticing the contradiction. And crucially, they do this pattern over and over, in ways that gradually erode your confidence in yourself. The pattern is what matters. One disagreement about who said what at dinner is just a disagreement. But if someone consistently denies things you clearly remember, if they make you question your sanity over small stuff, if they punish you for disagreeing with their version of events, if they isolate you from people who might validate your reality, then you're dealing with something more serious. The other key difference is how it makes you feel over time. Genuine memory disagreement is frustrating, maybe. You might feel misunderstood, but gaslighting creates a specific kind of psychological damage. You start to feel untethered from reality. You second-guess everything. You apologize for things you didn't do. You feel like you're losing your mind. So before you label someone a gaslighter, ask yourself some questions. Is this a pattern or an isolated incident? Does this person seem open to your perspective? Even if they disagree, are they trying to understand, or are they trying to control? Do they acknowledge the possibility that they might be wrong, or do they insist they're always right? In this section, we're going to break down exactly what each one looks like in real conversations, so you can tell the difference. Because once you understand the distinction, you can respond appropriately. You can either work through a genuine disagreement, or recognize that you're in a situation that requires a different kind of action entirely. So let's start with the simpler case. When two people genuinely remember something differently, both of you actually believe what you're saying. Your brain recorded the event one way. Their brain recorded it another way. This happens constantly because memory isn't a video camera. It's a reconstruction. Every time you remember something, your brain rebuilds it from fragments. And those fragments get shaped by your emotions, your beliefs, what you've learned since then, and what story you've been telling yourself about what happened. Two people can sit in the exact same room, experience the exact same conversation, and walk away with completely different versions of what was said. One person remembers sharp words, the other remembers a calm discussion. One person felt dismissed, the other felt heard. Neither one is lying. Neither one is deliberately twisting the truth. Their brains just processed and stored the experience differently. When this happens, you usually see a few tells. Both people are genuinely confused by the other's account. They'll say things like, "I don't remember it that way," or "That's not what I thought happened." There's often real frustration because they can't understand how the other person could see it so differently. But here's the key part. They're frustrated with the disagreement itself, not with being challenged or corrected. They're open to the possibility that maybe they misremembered. They might even acknowledge, "Well, I guess we both could be right about what we each experienced." The conversation, even when heated, usually stays focused on what actually happened. Did you say that word or not? Was it Tuesday or Wednesday? Were they there or not? It's factual confusion, but it's honest confusion. Gaslighting is completely different. In gaslighting, one person is deliberately manipulating the other person's sense of reality. They're not just remembering differently, they're actively working to make you doubt your own mind. And here's what makes it insidious. It often starts with small things. You say, "You were really angry at me yesterday." They say, "I wasn't angry at all, I was calm. You were the one who was upset." Now, maybe they genuinely felt calm. But if they keep doing this, if every time you bring up something that happened, they deny it or flip it around so that you're the problem, that's not a memory difference. That's a pattern of control. The tells of gaslighting are different. The person denies things you know happened, not things you think happened, things you directly witnessed or have evidence of. They make you feel crazy for questioning them. They turn conversations around so that you end up apologizing for bringing up the original issue. They isolate you from other people who might validate your reality. They might even say things like, "You always misremember things," or "Nobody would believe you anyway." When someone is gaslighting you, you often feel exhausted after conversations. You feel like you're going in circles. You start second-guessing everything about yourself, not just about this one situation, but about your judgment in general. You find yourself constantly trying to prove that something happened, constantly looking for evidence, constantly wondering if you're the crazy one. The difference comes down to intent and pattern. A genuine memory disagreement is usually isolated. It's about one event or one conversation. Gaslighting is systematic. It's a pattern of behavior designed to control and confuse, and that distinction matters enormously for how you respond. So how do you actually spot that pattern? Start by tracking what happens after the disagreement. In a genuine memory difference, when you present your version of events, the other person might push back, but then the conversation usually ends or you find some middle ground. Life moves on. With gaslighting, there's no resolution. You present your version, they deny it. You provide evidence, they reframe the evidence. You get frustrated. They tell you you're being too emotional to remember clearly, and suddenly you're defending your own sanity instead of discussing what actually happened. That emotional escalation is key. Gaslighters are brilliant at making you feel crazy for insisting on your own reality. They'll say things like, "You always twist things around," or "Nobody else thinks you're right, so maybe the problem is you." They're not trying to find the truth together. They're trying to make you doubt yourself so thoroughly that you stop trusting your own judgment. Here's another marker: the stakes. A genuine memory disagreement usually happens about something relatively low stakes. You remember going to that restaurant on a Tuesday. Your friend remembers Thursday. It matters to neither of you deeply. But gaslighting often targets memories that have real consequences for your safety, your self-worth, or your decisions. Did that argument about your boundaries actually happen? Did they actually promise to change? Did they actually say something hurtful? These aren't small details. These are the foundation of how you understand the relationship itself. Pay attention to whether the other person is curious about your perspective or defensive about theirs. Someone genuinely confused about a shared memory will usually ask questions. Wait, are you sure it was that day? Help me understand what you remember. A gaslighter doesn't ask. They assert. They tell you what happened. They tell you what you felt. They tell you what you meant by something you said. They're not interested in your internal experience, because acknowledging it would mean acknowledging that your reality is as valid as theirs. And this matters because memory is genuinely complicated. Neuroscience shows us that all of us reconstruct memories. We fill in gaps. We're influenced by emotion and suggestion. So gaslighters exploit this. They use the legitimate fuzziness of human memory as a weapon. They make you feel unreasonable for insisting on anything at all, when they can point out that memory isn't perfect. But here's the thing. Just because memory isn't perfect doesn't mean your experience doesn't matter. You can have an imperfect memory of an event and still know how it made you feel. You can misremember details and still know that someone hurt you or broke a promise. The gaslighter's trick is conflating those two things. They use your uncertainty about the details to make you doubt the emotional truth of what happened. The real test is this. When you disagree about something, does the other person eventually validate that your experience was real to you, even if they remember it differently? Or do they insist that your experience itself was wrong? One is a genuine memory disagreement. The other is gaslighting. And once you see that pattern clearly, you can start protecting yourself. The thing is, genuine memory disagreements happen all the time. Two people witness the same event and walk away with completely different versions. One person remembers a conversation as light-hearted. The other felt hurt the whole time. One person swears they said they'd be home by 9. The other genuinely recalls saying they'd try to be home by 9. These gaps exist because memory isn't a recording device. It's a reconstruction. Every time you remember something, you're rebuilding it from fragments, and your emotions, stress levels, and what happened next all shape how you rebuild it. When someone genuinely remembers it differently, they might feel defensive when you challenge them. They might push back. But here's what they don't usually do. They don't tell you that your feelings about what happened are impossible. They don't insist that you couldn't have felt hurt if they didn't intend to hurt you. They don't say you're crazy for being upset. They might say, I didn't mean it that way, or I really don't remember it happening like that. But they acknowledge that something happened that affected you. A gaslighter does something different. They don't just disagree about facts. They attack your right to have experienced what you experienced. They say things like that never happened, or you're making it up, or you're too sensitive, or nobody else would be bothered by that. They rewrite not just the event, but your emotional response to it. They make you question whether you're allowed to feel what you feel. Here's another pattern that separates the two. When someone genuinely misremembers, they can usually be reasoned with using evidence. Show them a text message, point out a witness, remind them of what came before and after. Sometimes they'll say, oh, you're right, I was wrong. Sometimes they'll say, I still remember it differently, but I believe you. Either way, the conversation can move forward, because you're both operating from the premise that one of you might be mistaken about facts. Gaslighting doesn't work that way. You can show a gaslighter evidence, and they'll find a way to invalidate it. They'll say the text is fake. They'll say the witness is lying for you. They'll say you're twisting the meaning. They're not trying to figure out what actually happened. They're trying to make you doubt your own grip on reality. That's the whole point. The real tell is what happens when you stand your ground. If someone genuinely remembers it differently, and you calmly say, I know what I experienced, and I need you to respect that, a reasonable person will usually back off. They might not agree with your version, but they'll accept that you're not going to change your mind and move on. A gaslighter won't let it go. They'll keep pushing. They'll keep insisting you're wrong. They'll bring it up days later. They'll tell other people that you're the unreliable one. Because gaslighting isn't about memory. It's about control. Once you start noticing this difference, you'll see it everywhere. In relationships, in families, in workplaces. The question to ask yourself is simple. Is this person trying to figure out what actually happened? Or are they trying to make me doubt what I know to be true? The answer tells you everything you need to know about what you're dealing with. The answer tells you everything you need to know about what you're dealing with. Someone who genuinely remembers it differently will say things like, "I thought you said yes," or "From where I was standing, it looked like you were angry." They'll be open to evidence. They'll say, "Wait, let me think about that again." They might feel embarrassed. They might apologize. A gaslighter will say things like, "You always twist everything," or "Nobody would believe you anyway," or my personal favorite, "That never happened and you're crazy for thinking it did." They double down. They bring other people into it. They make you defend yourself so hard that you forget what you were originally upset about. The difference is intention. One person is trying to understand. The other is trying to control. And here's what matters most. You don't need to prove which one is happening. You don't need to win the argument or make them see it your way. What you need to do is trust your own mind, trust your own memory, trust your own experience. If someone consistently makes you question yourself, if you find yourself constantly replaying conversations to make sure you didn't misunderstand, if you're apologizing for things you didn't do just to make the conflict stop, that's not a difference in memory. That's a pattern, and patterns matter. You can be kind and still have boundaries. You can give someone the benefit of the doubt and still protect yourself. You can accept that memory is imperfect and still know when someone is weaponizing that fact against you. The real takeaway here is this. Your mind is not a court of law. You don't need absolute proof of what happened. You just need to notice how you feel around this person. Do you feel safe? Do you feel heard? Do you feel like your reality is being respected? If the answer is no, then it doesn't matter whether they're gaslighting you on purpose or just remembering it differently. What matters is that the relationship isn't working, and you get to make a choice about that. Some people will change when you set a boundary. Some people won't. Some people will get worse. But that's not your problem to solve. Your job is to take care of yourself. So the next time you find yourself in that moment where you're not sure if you're the crazy one, remember this. Trust your gut. It's usually right. And if you're constantly second-guessing yourself around one particular person, that's information. That's your answer. That's your sign that something needs to change. What that change looks like is up to you.